Welcome to the Flamingo Advantage podcast. I am Katie, your host, and I am so excited today to have a master communicator with us, a flamingo in her own right. This is someone who started out her career afraid to speak and has overcome that and gone on to help others use their voice for good in the world. Lisa Vanderkwaak and her Speak to Transform framework. She's been teaching other communicators how to use their voice for the Lord's work for over 25 years. So Lisa, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Katie. What a joy to be here.
I'm so excited to talk with you again today. We had you on the For Your Success podcast. You've been participated in several of the summits and different things that we've done. And every time it's a joy because you bring so much truth into everything that you do. And I don't know if you would consider that your flamingo advantage, but I definitely see that. And I'm just so grateful for your work.
Oh, thank you so much. Wow. I do, that's really special because one of the areas that I feel like God has called me to is freedom, is really helping bring freedom. Of course, truth goes alongside of that. So maybe that's kind of the sidekick that you see.
So in training speakers, tell us about who your right fit person is. In training, in the trainings that you do.
So my ideal woman that I like to work with, and I know that will benefit the most from what I have to offer, is a Christian woman who maybe she's a leader in ministry, or she's an entrepreneur or an influencer in some way. And she's really impact driven. She's been speaking for a bit, but she knows that there's more impact she can have. But not only that, she also wants to learn how to use her message to expand her influence and also to expand her income so that she can have more resources to do what God's called her to do. So that's someone who I work with best, even though I have worked with clients who have never spoken before. The ideal are someone who has just gotten themselves out there and find, you know what, I need help.
Yeah. And would you say that that is someone who wants to do speaking as a career, like the speaking is their business? Or is it important also for other types of business owners to improve how we speak?
Oh, you know what? For the vast majority of them, 99.99% this is part of their marketing plan. So it's not some of them want to be professional speakers, but they don't really understand what that means. But most of them is that they know that they have to speak with whatever they're doing, ministry, marketing, media, and they know that this is something that they need to grow in. So it's really, even though they may not say it this way, it is actually their marketing arm.
Mm-hmm. And when I was training to be a missionary early on, business was not in the plans, right?
Yeah.
And my thought was, I will learn Spanish because I don't know where I'm going to go. And if I learn one language, it's got to be easier to learn another, right? And my thought was, if I learned to be an educator, I could get into any country as an educator where I might not be able to as a missionary. Yes. And everywhere we go, we are talking to people and we are teaching people something, right? And so I feel like it's kind of that way with public speaking and running a business, in that you're always communicating the value of what you do in one way or another. I mean, whether it is on an interview or on a stage or in your TikTok videos or on your YouTube trainings or in your courses, right? We're always communicating, and there's always ways that we can improve that.
Exactly. I say this on my marketing, speaking or communication skills, having good communication skills is no longer a nice asset. Sorry. It's now an essential asset. It's something that actually is a differentiator between, for example, if two people were vying for the same position at a job, and one of them had higher developed communication skills with everything else the same, that person will get the job. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Because that is something that is developed over time. And yes, you can learn it, but if someone already shows that actually brings a confidence. There's so much other factors to it. So yeah, communication, you cannot get away from it anymore. And the beautiful thing is now it's actually much easier than it ever has been to speak and to be a communicator.
Yeah, it's very much an advantage. And one of those things that makes you stand out. We speak of the flamingo advantage. And what is the
Yes.
thing that God has gifted you that makes you different and makes you unique and makes you stand out in the world? And I think that communication is definitely one of those things that can um, improve that standout factor and
Yeah.
give you something more to leverage in the way that you get your message to the world.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
Recently you and I were talking, and we were one of the things you brought up, I'd love for you to share it here, is the difference of voice, right? And we think of voice and we think of improving how we use our voice, like physically, but then there's also like the message that is your voice, and also the place of voice. You talked about each of those three, and I'd love you have you share that with our audience.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So the physical voice obviously is our voice, but oftentimes we think that we can never change the voice that we have. But it's like anything. It's like we can change our hairstyle. We can change things like that. We might get into a habit of having it one way. Same thing with our voice. We may have over time bought into the belief system that, you know what, it's much better if I am not loud or if I'm just quiet or whatever it might be. And so we've developed that habit based on a belief system. And but that doesn't serve us well in other situations. I'll give you an example. Like I was coaching a client who her first conversation with me, she called and to see whether or not we'd be a good fit. And she was a partner in a firm, and she found herself, even though she was well educated, skilled in her profession, her other partners were all men, and she found herself not being heard, not being taken seriously. And I knew exactly why, because when I heard her voice, I knew exactly what was going on. She was in her late 50s, but she sounded like a preteen. She sounded like a young girl. And so because of that, perceptually, they were perceiving her as someone who is not capable, who is not worthy to be listened to for whatever reason. People have to understand that there's like 107, scientists say 176 unconscious biases that go off in people's brain the moment they interact with someone. And the factors that influence their perception of you are the words you say, your voice. So those are the good parts of your voice, and the things that maybe we don't want, like the fillers and stuff. And then the third is our physical intelligence. Even on a podcast, when someone can't see you, your physical intelligence still plays a factor. I can explain that later if we have time. But why I say that is that when you speak, people have a perception of you. And so for her, she had to learn how to now use the instrument that God had given her to, so that she would sound confident, she would show up confident, and that she would be received for who she was. Did I want her to be someone she wasn't? Absolutely not. But you can, like any instrument, you can learn how to use it so that it has a much fuller capacity. And so it is with our voice. I didn't start out speaking the way I am right now. I was very much shy, quiet, mumbling. I had to learn. I had to learn how to use my voice. So that's one thing. The physical. Then the other aspect is you can call it positioning or posturing, where you have a certain uniqueness about you that if you are true to that uniqueness, it's going to attract the people that want to work with you. And so your job is to be clear and true to that. So it's like your value system, who you are as a person, what I like to say, what's I'm going to say what ticks you off, but that's not what you like and what you don't like. What are the things that fire you up, and what are the things that frustrate you? Like when you're true about those things, you're going to naturally draw the people to you. And that seems a little petty, but at the same time, it's it's integrity. And so it's that voice of influence. You are called to influence a certain group of people, but they won't know that unless you express that, unless you are true to what it is that you can help them, or you get about them. Let me put it that way. It's like they're going to say, wow, she gets me, because of your voice of influence, because of the positioning that you take on something. And then the last one, the place, is what it's kind of like your realm of authority or your sphere of influence. Who are these people, and maybe what area are you called to influence? So it might be a people group, it might be a industry, it might be a certain phase of life, it might be a certain aspect of a person's development that you're called to reach them. So the place of influence, also the place your voice shows up, also has a role in playing in how people see you, and that uniqueness that sets you apart from other people.
Yeah. And like you said, it repels or it attracts. And we had made the comment back to the flamingo advantage, that your voice, even the flamingo birds have their own unique voice, right? And that is part of their flamingo advantage. It's how they communicate. It's how they show up in the world. It's how they create relationships, because the baby flamingos, started to say the child flamingos, but the babies recognize the parents by the voice, and the parents recognize each other and the baby by their unique voice. And your people, like, you're not meant to, the flamingo parent is not meant to feed all the babies. He's meant to feed his baby or her baby, right? And
Yes.
you are meant to show up and feed certain people in the world, impact certain people, not all the people. Like, there's
That's
other
right.
flamingos to do that, but
That's right.
certain people. And they will identify that by the way you show up and use your voice, as Lisa is saying,
Yeah.
in the way that you're true to your values and your belief systems, in the way that you're true to the area that you know you were created to speak into.
Yeah.
And that's going to identify and call out those people that you are meant to serve.
Yes. Yeah. And even in the nuances, right, of industry, like for example, I may not be called to speak to, although I can, I'm not called to actually reach people who are speaking in corporations in terms of doing presentations and things like that. Although I've worked with them over the years, I know that's not an area that I'm called to right now to reach. If it was, I would be marketing to them, right? I would be speaking their language. I would be helping them to understand, I get you. I know the frustrations, but I'm not. I'm actually speaking to a different group of people.
I love that. And that flamingo advantage of using that voice as a leverage piece
Yes.
to be able to speak the language, like you said, to stay relevant to the people that you're trying to connect with, so that they can say, oh, she's talking to me, I need that. Right.
Yes. Yeah.
So cool. Awesome. So Lisa, share with us where we can connect with you, so we can be sure and have our audience connect with you and find out more about your work.
Sure. Well, you can go to lisavanderkwaak.com, and Katie will probably have that posted down below. But to spell the name is LisaVanderkwaak. It's a mouthful. So you can also go to lisav.tv, which makes it a little bit easier. And that's my YouTube channel, and you can connect with me there.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us today. I appreciate you.
You're most welcome. Thank you for having me, Katie.